For this section, I'm going to be going over a couple more properties of exponents. The first one is the negative exponent property. Symbolically, that would be if you had a quantity like a raised to the negative n power. You need to rewrite this so that it becomes a positive exponent, and so in order to do that, you write it as a fraction. You put 1 on top over a to the n power. For example, if we have x to the negative 3 power, we would put 1 over x to the third. If you have something with just numbers, like 4 to the negative 2 power, you would do 1 over 4 squared, which is the same thing as 1 over 16 when you evaluate it. So anytime you see a negative exponent, you need to rewrite it so that it becomes positive. The second product, or the second property I want to talk about in this section, is the quotient of powers. So instead of in the last video with the other properties where we had the product of powers and we multiplied two of the similar bases and you added their exponents, for the quotient of powers you're going to be dividing them. So you'll have something like a to the m over a to the n. And what you're going to have to do is subtract those exponents. For example, if you have b to the 5th power over b to the 3rd power, you're going to be taking 5 minus 3, which is going to be b squared. So let's spend some time looking at the negative exponent property. If something is a negative exponent like this first one, go ahead and just rewrite it as a fraction, so 1 over x squared. We do the same thing with number 2, 1 over 7 squared, but because it's a number, we can evaluate 7 squared and replace that with a 49. Now, if the fraction is already there and you have the negative exponent, like this one has the negative already in the denominator, you basically have to do the opposite of what we did. So instead of writing it as a fraction, we want to remove the fraction from the problem. So we're going to rewrite this so that it says 5 squared, and that's going to be equal to 25. So if you have a whole fraction like this one where it's 1/3 and you're raising it to the negative 3 power, you're going to take the whole reciprocal, which remember is when you flip the fraction upside down. So we have 3 over 1 to the 3rd power, which is the same thing as just 3 to the 3rd power, which is going to be 27. Now if the number you're working with itself is negative, that is okay. So like the negative 2 is not a problem here, but that negative 3 exponent is. So I need to rewrite this so it's 1 over negative 2 to the 3rd power. So this is going to end up being a negative fraction. You're going to get negative 1/8 when you take negative 2 times itself 3 times. So for number 6, I would flip the fraction 2/3. This is all raised to the 4th power. So that 4 translates to both numbers. So we have 2 to the 4th power over 3 to the 4th power, which is going to be 16 over 81. Now for something like 7 and for 8, if you need to rewrite something like this one, the only things that you should be moving are the terms that have negative exponents. If it's positive or if it's just a plain number, you leave it where it is. So for this one, x to the negative 2 is really the only thing that's causing a problem here. So the negative 3 and the y to the 4th should stay on the top. Remember, that's where we would put like the 1 in our fraction. But since we already have other pieces, we don't need to put a 1 there. We can just leave those other pieces on top. And then that x squared is going to drop to the bottom. So if you want to try number 8, pause the video, take a minute to rewrite this one. So if you rewrote it, you should have been left with 4x to the 3rd on top, all over y squared z to the 4th power. Now for number 9, The same idea is applying here, where we only need to take care of those terms that have negative exponents. Anything else can stay the way it is. So I'm going to rewrite this so that it's 8a to the third, c to the fifth is going to move up top, and b squared is going to go to the bottom. So again, if you want to give number 10 a try, pause the video, and when you're ready, come back and check your answer. So what we should have done for number 10 is left y squared on top, moved z squared on top, and on the bottom you should have 2 and x. If you wrote x to the first power, that's okay. You don't need that 1 there, but it's okay if you have it there. A common mistake I see on number 10 is that people try to move this 2 up to the top, and you don't need to do that. 2 is already in the bottom of the fraction. 2 does not have a negative exponent, so it does not need to move, so it needs to stay in the denominator. Moving on to that second property we talked about, which was the quotient property. This is when you subtract your exponents. So for number 11, we're going to have x to the 11th minus 9 for the exponent there, and we're left with x squared. So for number 12, if you do 8 minus 2, you're going to be left with 4 to the 6th power. And if we evaluate that, we get 4,096. For 13, for the x, you're going to take 3 minus 1. And for the y, you're going to do 4 minus 3. So you'll be left with x squared, y. Now for 14, when I take 4 minus 7, following that rule, that's going to leave me with m to the negative 3 power. So what I need to do to fix this, because I have a negative exponent, is put a 1 on top and drop that m to the third to the bottom. For this last one here, combine the top first. So 2 times 3 is going to be 6. For the m's, since we're doing the product of powers, we're going to add negative 1 plus 3. And we're going to leave this all over m to the negative 4 for now. So now on top we have 6m squared over m to the negative 4. So for this one, since it's division, we're going to subtract our exponents. 2 minus negative 4. Think about your keep, change, change rules. Those become plus signs. So your answer is going to be 6m to the 6th power.